All right, well, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Katie Bell. I'm your transition specialist with PAYCOM. So essentially, we're going to be walking through employee self-service. So each one of you should have login information. So this meeting is going to highlight how do you log into your portal, what access do you have in order to change information or confirm information. And then in the second half of the meeting, we're going to dismiss employees and just have managers stick around just to show them, administrative side tasks. So how do I approve a time card? How do I approve time off request, etc. All right, so we're going to jump into employee self-service. So once you get your login information, if you go to www.paycom.com, it's going to bring you to our main screen. And in order to log in, you're going to hover over this login button, and you're going to log in as the employee. Whenever you select it, it's going to ask you for your username and your password. So an important thing to note is that first character within your username is going to be the number 0 and not the letter O. So I know that's probably one of the mistakes that we see most often. So if you're trying to log in and your username's not letting you in the system, that would be the first thing that I check, that this is actually a number and not a letter. It does ask you for the last 4 digits of your Social Security number just for verification purposes. Whenever you log into the system, it brings you to a main menu that looks similar to this. And this is my demo account, so these are fake accruals, fake timekeeping systems, and fake employees. Just so you know, this is just an example of what you would see whenever you log into your own portal. Employee self-service is designed for you to have access to your own information online, and it gives you a way to communicate with your human resources department to make sure that they have the most accurate and up-to-date information on your personnel file as possible. The first tab that we're going to look at is this time management tab. So if you are clocking in and out through the hardware clock, so if you're actually punching on the physical clock that are at your different locations, you're not going to see this web time clock link. You'll only see a read-only web timesheet. So if you select it, it's going to bring you to a screen that shows you any current punches that you currently have within the system. And you do have the ability to add or delete a comment. So if you want to send a message to your supervisor or put a comment on a particular day, you have the ability to expand it, put in a comment. I want this to show up on August 8th. I have my add comment button, and now I can hover over that particular text box and see any comment that I've left within the system. Your supervisor will also be able to see these comments. Well, it's just a tool for you to be able to give a little bit more information whenever they're looking at your time card. Are there questions about the time management tile or what you can see from your time card?
Not yet.
All right, so we're going to keep moving. So each tile within your employee self-service main menu is directing you to a different section of your personnel file. You can also navigate through employee self-service using the toolbar on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you don't want to jump back to the main menu and get to the next section within employee self-service, you can utilize this toolbar to the left-hand side. We're going to go to time off request next. So in order to request time off, you select that first link. It brings you to a screen that shows you a current month's view within the system. It's also going to display any accruals that you have available to you. Again, this is my demo account, so these are fake accruals. This will reflect what TAJ offers you as an employee. So if it's PTO, you're going to see the verbiage PTO listed here as an accrual. This dashboard also gives you the ability to see how many hours you currently have available, And then it also shows you how many future hours of PTO have been approved, how many future hours have been requested, and then your net available balance. So this is going to show you what you have left to request today within the system, because it's assuming that these hours are going to get approved, and it's making sure you don't over request something for hours that you won't have. So in order to request a day off, if I scroll down to the calendar and I start scrolling over these dates, I have a green plus sign that appears at the top right-hand corner of each box. So if I want to ask off for August 16th, I have the ability to click on this green box, or I'm sorry, that green plus sign, and a pop-up window comes up, and it's going to ask me a little bit more information about the time off request that I'm making. It's going to ask me how many hours I am asking off for. So that is 8 hours. That's going to be listed here. I do have the ability to change this if I need to. I can choose my type. So if only PTO is offered, that's going to be the only thing that you see within here. Since I selected August 16th from the calendar, this is displaying as August 16th. I do have the ability to change it from here. I can also select multiple days at the same time. So if I'm taking the entire week, I have the ability to say so. Whenever I select it, I would say Add Request. The system is going to email my supervisor if they have an email address within the system to let them know that a request has been made. And then this calendar updates in real time according to the legend below. So if you have pending request, something that I have put into the system that has not been approved yet, it's going to show up in this yellow color. Once it has been approved or denied, it will show up in orange or red respectively. So once I make these requests, my hours requested updates, and so then my net available balance also updates based on what I just put into the system. If you do not have an accrual, but you still need time off, we will have the option for leave without pay as well listed right here. So if you want to let your manager know that you can't come into work that day, you don't have the time, but you're not able to make it in, you do have the ability to still request that day so everybody knows, scheduling wise, what needs to be accommodated to make sure you can get that day off. I have the ability to move from month to month, so I do have the option to request future dates. So I can choose the date from the drop down here and hit this go button, or I can navigate using the next or previous buttons. So I've already made a request for this particular day, which is why it's still highlighted in yellow. I can make requests for future dates here as well. And then any other requests, so these two requests have already been denied, so those colors have been changed to where I can see very visually what's happened to that request. If I don't want to navigate through the calendar, I do have the ability to add the time off request directly. So from this top line, I can add the time off request. That brings me to the same view that I saw in that pop-up window that I got from the calendar. I would choose my type, and then I can navigate through these calendars to make sure that I choose the correct day. Any future time off request that has been made within the system, I do have the ability to view and edit as well. So from this bar, whenever I expand it, does any future time off request that is within the system, it does do it based on the order that I requested it. So I made my December request before these last dates that I just requested. This is sortable though, so if I click on this column, it will sort it by date so I can see when I'm planning to be off. I have the ability to update these as needed. So if I actually only need 4 hours here, I can select the update box, put in my update, and then say update. You can also remove the request. So if I no longer need this day off, right, I can select the update button, hit this remove request option, and update it. And then that's going to remove it from my supervisor's calendar. They'll still have a note that I removed a request, but it's nothing that's pending anymore. If something has already been approved and I change it, it goes back into a pending status. So if my supervisor approved for me to be off on August 11th for 4 hours and now I need 8 hours and I update that, the supervisor does have to reapprove that in order for it to be approved within the system. Are there questions about this time off request piece?
Katie, can you tell them a little bit, like when they request the vacation, tell them how that works through the process so they'll know, I mean, that it cues the supervisor, they see it, that kind of thing, so that they're not going, well, gosh, when do I hear something back? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so as soon as you make the request, it does send an email to your supervisor through an email notification. Your supervisor would then log into the system and make that approval or the deny on that request. If you have an email address within the system will then email you to let you know what action was taken on that actual time off request. If you do not have an email address, then this will be your best way to log back in and look to see the colors that have changed on that particular request to know if it's been approved or denied. If it's hanging out in the yellow status, it means that it's still pending.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about this section?
No. I think we're good.
All right, so we're going to move forward to my information. So this is the information that HR has on file for you for your personnel file. If you select the very first link, which is address and contact information, that brings you to a screen that shows you some basic demographic information, like your phone number, your address, and your email. So if you have the ability to update the field, it's going to be in this open text box that you can see. If you do not have the ability to update the field, it's going to be in this read-only section. So you can still see what HR has on file for you, you just can't change it. But this is going to allow you to come in and update your information. So if I move, if I have a change in my phone number, I can put it in. I also have my emergency contact information, so I can see all of my emergency contacts that are listed, and I can update this as I need to. Once I hit that update contact information, it does automatically update my personnel file. So this is the electronic form that you would walk through in order to change your file, and then it doesn't have to be retyped into the system. So once HR or payroll pulls up your information, it will stand as you see it on employee self-service. You're also able to see specific HR information on yourself. Again, if you can't edit it, it will be in this read-only section, but you are able to see what's on your file. If you are able to edit it, you're able to come in here and make the changes and then hit update. Once you log into the system initially, you can change your username. If you go to change password or username, this is where you would come in and change it from that 9-digit alphanumeric code that's been assigned to you. If you select change, it's going to ask you for a new username. This does have to be in an email format in order to update it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a valid email, but it is within an email format. So if you don't have one, you'll need to make sure that you have that @ symbol and then a .com or a .net at the end of it. That way it's a little bit easier to log into the system on a day-to-day basis. You can also update your password at any point. So if you don't like your password, if you want to reset it, you do have the ability to come in here and change it. Whenever you log into the system, you might be prompted to answer security questions. So if you log in from a different IP address, the system will ask you 2 of the 5 questions that it's asked you to register at the beginning. This is where you have the ability to change it. So if you can't remember the answer to one of your security questions, or if you just need to change it to maybe something that's a little bit easier, you have the ability to come in here and then update any one of these at any point in time. You also have the ability to self-disclose on your EEO information. So this is all of your gender, race, and ethnicity. And so you have the ability to disclose this information and then update. That is important for HR to have on file for you so they can make sure that they are filling out their necessary reports, and that's where you can find it. Other features of employee self-service that you might use more often is this My Payroll section. So within My Payroll, you have the ability to view your pay stubs. Whenever you select on it, it gives you an electronic copy of each pay stub. So you're able to see all of the times you've been paid within the current year. My employee has only been paid once this year, but I am able to see a breakdown of earnings, deductions, net pay, and taxes. For you guys, since you started with Paycom in August, you will see a lump sum from 1/1 to June 30, and then a month to date for July, and then you will start seeing individual pay stubs with your August 8th check date and moving forward. And as you guys move forward with Paycom, these checks will always be here. So from year to year, you can go back to previous check dates and see anything that's been within the system. If you need to print a check stub or view a check stub in a different format, you have the ability to hit this View Earnings Statement button. It brings you to a more traditional view of a check stub. You can export it to a PDF and print it if you need to, or save it for your records. This way you don't have to keep that check stub that comes after every payroll. It is with you on employee self-service. So if you're applying for a new car loan or a new house loan or something where you might need this, it's always going to be here for you electronically. One of the cool features of My Payroll is that you have the ability to test a sample paycheck. So underneath this section, what this is going to allow you to do is update your federal withholding information and then see what that's going to do to your net check. So if you're trying to debate, do I file a single in 1 or maybe married in 2, or do I file married at the single rate? Instead of guessing what that's going to do to your check, you have the ability to actually see it. If you go into this Edit Tax Information, it's going to bring you to a screen that allows you to put in the status that you're wanting and say Update. This is not actually changing your personnel file. This is used as a calculator so you can see what your normal regular check is. So if I'm salary, I can see my per pay period salary. If I'm hourly, it's going to assume I'm working a full pay period and give me what I would make within 80 hours in 2 weeks. And then it updates my taxes based on whatever I put into the system and shows me what that's going to do to my net check. You also have the ability to use this for benefit information. I know that you guys are going to be rolling out benefits. If you want to see what that's going to do to your net check, if you are eligible for benefits, you can come in here and update this and add the deduction. And again, this is not enrolling in benefits. This is just a way for you to see what that's going to do to your net check before you actually make your enrollment. Once you've played with this, let's say you realize that you want to move forward with changing your W-4 information. You have the ability to do so from this tax setup link. By selecting it, it's going to bring you to what you currently have within the system. I can put in my new exemptions. I can choose to withhold an additional amount if I want to. But in order to update the tax setup, I have to electronically sign a W-4. And so by selecting that, this box turns green. It puts my signature within this box. And then I can say update tax information. That does automatically change my personnel file. So it will be available for the next payroll. Keep in mind that your payroll does process a couple of days early. So for a Monday's check date, it's usually processed by the previous Wednesday or Thursday. So if you make your changes before it's actually processed, it'll go into effect on that next check date. Once I sign any document, I have the ability to see it within Employee Self-Service. So it takes me to this Document and Task section, and I can go to this Completed Document section, and I can see any document that's been signed. So the one that I just signed was listed as August 9th at 3:20. I can select this file. It brings me to a window that I can see that W-4. It puts in my information. I elected married at the single rate with 4 exemptions, and then it puts in my signature and my date that I signed it. HR has a copy of it. You have a copy of it if you ever need a record of it. Are there questions about my payroll? Anything that you can do within the system?
Will managers have access to all employee pay stubs or just their own personal?
Managers will have access to their own pay stubs.
But not all their employees? Like if an employee wants a manager to reprint their payroll stubs, do we have access?
They can go in and do their own because they'll have access to this. Right?
Yes, that's
Right.
Right.
Yeah, but most of the housekeepers, they
don't have
don't
computers.
have computers at home. They don't know how to use computers. I don't think some of them.
We may need to show them how.
They can bring it.
Katie, do we have a mobile app?
Did you hear that, Katie?
Concerned about people not having computers at home?
No, Arvin asked if there's a mobile app, and you had told me one time it's not a mobile app, but there is a way to do it. So if you'll explain to everybody.
Yeah, so Bev, I can actually send you the instructions on that too, so you can disperse it. But essentially, it's not an app that you go to the App Store and download, but you can go to our website on a smartphone and then save that web page to your home screen, so it looks just like an app, and then you can log in from anywhere.
And you'll send that to me, the instructions.
I can, yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much.
And we have instructions on how to do it on an iPhone or how to do it on an Android. So you should have both.
You might send both. I'm sure between the number of people we have, there will be both kinds.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Most people don't have computers, but they do have smartphones.
That's true, too.
And if there's like a safe computer, so for other industries that I've set up as well, if there's like a computer on site at the work location that they can get to employee self-service at that point as well, you know, that's an option, so they can at least log in while they're at work and see that information.
I think that's eventual plans. We're getting there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other questions on that section?
I think we're good.
All right. So you do have this section for company information, and you have a help menu. This will always be here as well, so where you can expand different sections of the system. They are in Spanish as well. These are manuals that walk through those different steps of the processes. So from my payroll, this is going to walk through each section that you can do within my payroll. It has screenshots available as well and where to view them. And that does update as our system updates, so you should have the most current information on how to get to the different sections of employee self-service. You will also have what we call My Learning, so that's within Paycom University. You have the ability to request these different courses. So if you do request learning, it brings you to a section that has all of these courses that are highlighted with this P symbol. And this is designed to give you access to courses that you have the ability to see within the system. So employees are only going to have these courses that are marked as employee. You have the ability to enroll in these different courses and then request them. Once they've been requested, you can go to your learning section and then walk through these different courses. And what this is designed to do is it gives you a help manual, so the ones that you can find from your help screen. It walks you through a video. It's a really short video, just a specific training. And then it walks you through a quiz that you can take, and at the very end there's a certificate that you can print out and use as well. So it's just extra information within the system, different ways to navigate through the system, just to make sure that people understand what Paycom has to offer them. And that is employee self-service. So I know that we have a My Benefits tab here. There will be training on that as well once we get benefits up and running. But I just wanted to make sure that there aren't any other questions before we go to the manager side.
I think we're good in the conference room, and I'm not sure who all dialed in. We can do that. They're already filing out. So anyone who is not a supervisor, doesn't have anybody reporting to them, you can go ahead and go at this point. And thank you for attending this part of it. And the rest of us, I'll have someone reporting to them. So you guys are welcome to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's getting warm, isn't it? What's that thing? 73. Yeah, I know. You don't get 71. He doesn't get warm until it's like 78. Whew. Okay.
Perfect. All right, are we ready to keep going, Beth?
I think so. Do we have anybody? What I want to look at, wait, where's mine up here? I want to see. Okay, so someone's called in from the Days Inn and Kimberly's over there. So yeah, they should be good to go.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so that was a crash course in employee self-service. So as a supervisor, you're going to have your own employee self-service to where you can log in and see your information and your pay stubs and all of that information that we just walked through. You're also going to have a supervisor section within the system to where you can log in and approve time cards and approve time off request. So as a supervisor, you're going to see this client login button to the top right-hand corner of your screen. By selecting it, it's going to toggle you to your supervisor side of the system. So you have the ability to go back and forth. So if you log in as a supervisor initially, you can hit this ESS login, and that takes you back to your own employee self-service. So it's trying to limit the amount of that you're needing to log out as an employee and log back in as an actual supervisor. To get to your supervisor side, if you're not logged in as an employee, you would still go to paycom.com, and whenever you hover over this login button, you're going to log in as the client. It's going to ask you for a client code, your username as a supervisor, so that will be different from your username as the employee, and then your password. And that takes you to the same screen.
Yes, and I was going to say to each of the supervisors, Jennifer sent you an email before she left last week that said, congratulations, you're a supervisor, and then she sent you your password separately. So I think she's been working with folks today to get them in. Thank you, Katie.
All right, so whenever you log into your supervisor side of the system, this is an example of your main menu. Again, this is my demo, so I have access to everything within the system. Your access will be limited, but if you are approving time cards, you will be able to see this time management tile whenever you log in. You'd be able to select Edit Time Cards. It's going to bring you to a screen that shows you the pay class options that you have to view. So pay classes are groups of time rules that your employees follow. So if you only have hourly individuals, you're only going to see that hourly pay class. If you have people across like exempt and non-exempt statuses that you approve, you're going to see a couple of different options here for your pay classes. You would select the ones that you are wanting to view and hit the select button. The system is going to bring you to a screen that shows you your employees to which you have access. And it's going to bring you to a filter screen above here. You can filter for just active employees by selecting that filter. And then this selected period will always default to the current period. So if you are approving time for a previous period, you do have to make that selection within the system. And then you're going to want to render totals. So what that's going to do is it's going to populate this dashboard with the total number of hours and overtime hours for your employees without actually having to go in and look at each employee's time card. Once all of those options are selected, whenever I hit that green select button, the system is syncing at the moment, but it will bring up all of my total hours and overtime hours, again, because this render totals checkbox has been selected. You have this column over here that has a red exclamation point. What that means is that there is something missing on that time card. So maybe the employee clocked in, but they didn't clock out, or they clocked out, but they didn't clock in. So the system doesn't know what to do with one of the punches on this particular time card. So you get to the time card. If you select the employee's name, it takes you directly to that time card. You can see their pay period. And then that same symbol shows up on the day where the employee is missing a punch. So in this case, the employee clocked in for lunch, but they never clocked out for the day. The system doesn't know what time to assign. If you select those question marks, the system will bring you to a window above the time card. It's going to default to the correct day because I chose the question marks directly from the time card. If it's missing an out punch, it's going to choose the out day punch. And out day punches will always default to 5. I do have the ability to change that if I need to. And it's always a good rule of thumb to leave a comment. So this does track the changes that you made to employees' time cards. So if there was ever an audit report that was pulled out of the system, they're going to be able to see that this supervisor edited this employee's time card. So just to make sure that everybody knows why you edited that particular punch, you can leave a comment and then hit add punch. And that comment will follow that change. So if an audit report were to be pulled, they would be able to see this comment and on the day and the punch that the supervisor updated it. Since I've resolved that punch, the red exclamation point goes away, and the system calculates daily totals, weekly totals, and then you have per pay period totals down at the bottom. So if the employee were to go into overtime, the system does split that out based on 40 hours in a working week. So they have 2 hours of overtime from this week and then a half hour of overtime from this week. So total 2.5 hours down here. I do have the ability to add a punch to the time card as well. So if this employee actually came in on a Saturday and they just didn't clock in for the day for whatever reason, I have these buttons up above the time card to where I can add a punch in for the employee. I do have to select the day if the punch doesn't exist at all. Whenever I select on this, the system does highlight the days that are currently within that pay period. to try to help me make sure I choose a day that's currently within that pay period that I'm looking at. I would choose the type of punch and then the time that the employee came in. I'm going to leave my comment. I'm going to say add punch. Every in punch needs an out punch, so the system's telling you I don't know when this employee clocked out. And we're going to add that punch into the system. Right. So that does update my weekly totals update and then my total overtime updates as well. I can also delete a line within the system. So if I've been adding punches, I've been adding 2 in punches, no out punches, whatever the case is, and something seems wrong with that entire line, I have these trash can icons to the right-hand side that I can delete out entirely. Whenever I select it, the data on that line does disappear. You might also, with people that are clocking in and out to hardware clocks, a common occurrence is that they don't select the right button from the clock. So instead of like clocking in for lunch, they might actually accidentally clock out for lunch twice. So if that happens, you're going to see something that looks like this. Right? So any out punch is indicated in red. Any in punch is indicated in blue. Looking at this employee's time card, they clocked in at 8 a.m. They clocked out for lunch at 12 p.m. I can see the punch type by hovering over the actual punch. They clocked back out for lunch at 1 p.m. and then clocked out for the day at 7 p.m. Right? So instead of saying I actually have 2 missing punches, it's probably the fact that the employee just hit the wrong button on the clock, and this was actually an in-lunch punch instead of an out-lunch punch. So to change that, if I select the actual punch itself and update that, I can update the punch, and then the system would resolve itself. I can also see the allocation that the employee is clocking into. So if they're a housekeeper, right, their department is going to be housekeeping. But if they change departments, so if they clock in and they're a housekeeper, but then they're also maintenance, or they're construction, or they're doing a front desk section, and they're not just doing one particular job, you do have the ability to change that allocation using these drop downs to the right-hand side. So they're normally blank, and that's fine. That's going to default to the employee's home section. So if they're a housekeeper, they're in the system as being a housekeeper. It's always defaulting this time to being housekeeping. If they're doing something else, you have the ability to come in here and update that particular department and say update punch. And then you're able to see that change in the allocation. So this time that's being worked is going to Department 100. This time that's being worked is going to Department 106. It also splits out the totals down at the bottom, so you can see how many hours are going to which department. Once the time card has been edited, once it's been cleared or approved, you have the ability to approve down here. So you have this drop down that says approve up to date. What that does is it gives you the ability to approve daily. You don't have to approve daily. If you come in once a week and approve time once a week to make sure that that week looks good before you move to the second half of the pay period, you have the flexibility to do that. So this is letting you come in at any point within the pay period and approve time within that pay period. If I only wanted to approve the first week of that time card, I'm going to select the 31st. I'm going to say approve date. Whenever I have approved a time card, the system turns it blue. So I'm able to see clearly what has been approved and what has not been approved. Once something has been approved, it's locked. I'm not able to edit anything. However, if I see a mistake that's still on that time card and it's already been approved, I can scroll down to the bottom. I can see my pay period approval. It's in blue. I can delete my approval, essentially revoking my approval. It opens the time card back up, and I'm able to make any changes as needed. Once I've made my change, I can come in here and approve the entire time card. It's important to know that you're approving the last day of the pay period. So even if the employee did not work on that Saturday or Sunday, I'm still going to approve the time card up to Sunday. I'm essentially approving the fact that they did not work that day. Whenever I select it, it turns the entire time card blue. That's how you know you approved the entire thing. And then there's no drop down that's listed here below the time card because there's nothing left for you to approve. Are there questions about this section?
Once the whole pay period's been approved, you can't go back and delete your approval for any edits, right?
You still have the ability to come in here and revoke that particular approval. So if you're looking at your time card, you press the button on accident, you can revoke it and make any updates that you need to, and then reapprove it.
Thank you.
And now, Katie, maybe go over with them some of the guidelines that you've shared with Jennifer and me that, like if there's missing punches, it can't be approved, and I mean they've got to fix this before we can run payroll. Is that correct?
That's right. So if you have a missing punch on the time card and you go down here and you try to approve it, the system is going to give you an error. It's going to say that you can't approve it if there's a missing punch. It's also going to give you that error if there is a pending vacation request, which we'll see what that looks like on the time card in just a second when we get to time off request. But you're going to see it from the time card. There's pending vacation request from here. And if that's listed on the time card, it's not going to let you approve it. So it's a safeguard to make sure that you are resolving the issues on your time card so your employees get paid correctly.
Based on that, I would recommend looking at it, if not glancing at it daily, when they remember what time they leave, or you might remember what time they leave or come or go. But for sure weekly, I would not wait for a whole 2-week pay period to try and go back and remember what they did, you know, at the beginning. Okay, they are for now, yes, but I want you guys to learn to rely on this too, you know, and go in and look for those errors and caution signs and that type of thing. Okay, thank you.
All right, so once one of the time cards has been approved, you can go back to your pay class list by hitting that green button down at the bottom that says pay class list. It brings you back to your pick list, but this selected period again will always default to the current period. So you do have to select that previous period again and wait for the system to refresh. However, you do have the ability to quickly go from time card to time card, which is what we're about to walk through, so you don't have to come back, wait for the system, and then go to the next time card. So if I know that all of these time cards, there's something wrong with them, I just want to look at them in more detail, I can select several of these time cards by selecting the checkbox to the left-hand side. The system tells me how many records I've selected. I can also search for employees, so by typing in names, it's going to filter this screen for me to where I can select, and the system updates the amount of records I've selected. I can say edit time cards, and it brings me to the first time card on that list to where I can make any updates as needed. However, when I'm done, instead of going back to the pay class list, I can click on this drop down and it displays the people that I selected on the previous screen. So I can go from one time card to the next time card in that same pay period or jump back and forth. It's just a little bit quicker to get from one time card to the next.
Now, Katie, we don't have any criteria programmed into our software for our managers right now in case somebody's run into extra time or anything, right? So it's a straight out pay without being flagged.
You mean like before it would start going overtime? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
It's just that if an in time, an out time, doesn't matter if it's 5 hours, 2 minutes, or 16 hours. It doesn't flag the 16 hours and it doesn't flag the 5 minutes. In case somebody forgot a miss punch or something, or just stayed punched in the whole day.
I think in our original setup, Katie, didn't we set a maximum hours for a day in case it went to that, it would reset to 0?
For a missing punch?
Yeah.
So
like once it sees the person's been there however many hours, it's going to like go, no, there's no way.
Right. Yeah, so that is a threshold within your pay class. So I think we put it for 14 hours. I can definitely double check on that, Bev. But once I've clocked in, if I don't clock out within a certain threshold, the system realizes that I've just missed a punch. And so it alerts me that there's a missed punch, and then it lets the employee clock in the next day. So it doesn't give them 18 hours of paid time, and then that has to be updated.
Hold on, we have a question going here. What's our question?
What's the cutoff time for when it does that, resets to 0? Because what if...
From the time they clock in. Is that correct, Katie? In other words, we have employees that work overnight. Is it going to reset at midnight? And I'm thinking, no, if they clock in at...
If somebody works at 3 to 11 and audit doesn't show up, so they're going to work it, so, you know, somebody else comes in until 7 a.m., after how many hours does it clock them out automatically?
In other words, they end up a double shift.
Yeah. Does it automatically clock them in after how many hours? Like,
well, it's going to show that there's a missing punch after whatever threshold. But remember, as a supervisor, you can go back in that card and say, yeah, but this person ended up working a double shift, and you can change that clock out time. Is that correct, Katie?
That's right. And I mean, but we can play with that threshold too. So if that happens a lot and you're finding missing punches, you know, we can increase it. So it's, you know, we can
they are going to
edit it.
I don't clock back in. But
you can.
they can clock out, clock back in.
Just remember,
either way, yeah.
You have to pay attention to the time.
Yeah, that would work. Let me ask one more thing, Katie, that we talked about previously, because you've been talking about if you go into a prior pay period and make changes and that type of thing. Going into a prior pay period to make changes will not automatically up payroll, will it, for the current period? So like, let's say someone worked some time and we missed it. So in this current pay period, I go back into a prior pay period and give them their 5 extra hours, whatever they worked. It's not going to automatically pull that in to pay this pay period, will it, since it's a correction?
That's correct. Right. So if you're going into a prior pay period, it's typically the one that's about to be paid. Like if you're in a current pay period, but I'm paying out for the previous pay period, that's why you would go to the previous pay period to make corrections. So if there's something that I forgot to pay the employee and we're putting it on the time card, that does need to be communicated with payroll to make sure that that time gets keyed in to payroll.
And how do they do that? I mean, what do they do? Come in and say, I added 5 extra hours to SUDQ on whatever day it was, and we just, I guess you'll have to teach us how do we make that entry into payroll to give them that extra, right?
Right. So within the payroll transaction, it would just need to be manually keyed, or you can put it on the current time card, you know, the current pay period or the whatever pay period you're paying out for as like retro pay or a certain like pay code
but
where that gets picked up.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put in, but you still put the time correction back on the day that it happened. Okay?
So you put it in twice?
No, what you're going to do is your time is supposed to reflect when they worked. So you can't go, oh, I forgot to put in that they worked last Saturday, I'm going to show they worked it today. Because if I ever have to go to court for that person, I need their time worked on the day they worked it. So that's why.
So we would put it in their previous vacation.
You'd fix the hours.
And just let you know.
Where would they put the comment, Katie, that said there's retro, or that there's retro pay?
So we would need to create an earning code, Bev, for that. But once it's there, they can add hours instead of actually adding punches to the pay period that you're paying. And so instead of here, you could have it to where I'm giving them a certain pay code. I'm just going to call it regular time because I don't have a retro pay set up within my demo. But if I put it on any day of that pay period and I put in the amount of hours that I need to give to that employee, I can add the hours to the time card, and then it shows.
Okay, without actually showing a punch in and punch out.
No punch, but it adds hours.
Right.
Yeah. And then you put a comment. I would ask if you do that you put a comment in that says this is for retro pay for whatever day. That will work.
And it would probably have been with a conversation with you. So.
Yeah.
And so go ahead and fix the previous.
Fix the time where it happened, and then go into the current pay period, add the hours. That will work. So, Katie, do we need to send that to you, or will you make a note to make us a retro pay?
So that's something Anthony will need to set up in your account.
Okay.
So I'll just need a little bit more information on that, but I can send you an email on what you need for that earning.
I'll make a note. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, another way to get to your time cards. So instead of going to the edit time card section, selecting the pay class and finding your employee or finding that dashboard, you have the ability to go to time card search. It's going to bring you to a current pick list of your employees. You can select your employee and it takes you to their current time card. You can navigate through their time card using this drop down to the left-hand side. So if you're looking at time for a previous period, you can make that selection, make updates, approve the same way you would from the other screen. This just doesn't give you a dashboard that totals the amount of hours. It lets you see what time cards you've approved, what time cards you haven't. But if you're trying to quickly look for an employee's time card, that might be the better option. We're going to keep moving to time off request. Underneath time management, if you go to time off request, the system is going to bring you to our screen that shows you where you can access all of your current time off requests within the system. So you have two different options on how to approve time off. The first one is through this time off calendar. By selecting it, it brings you to a screen that shows you a current month's view. And it shows you any time off request that has been made on the particular day. So if I have something that is outstanding, the system is highlighting that day in yellow, a way to tell me that there is an outstanding time off request. It does stack the requests on top of each other. So on the 11th, I have 2 requests for that particular day. You can see that Phoebe and Chandler have both asked for this day off, and they're both currently pending, so they've just been requested. I'm able to see how many future hours they have asked for, what they currently have available, how many future hours are pending, what their net available is. And then I have a projected net available. And what that's going to do is if I don't have time right now, but I might have time 6 months from now, whenever I'm making in the request, this calculation will show you what the employee should have at that point in time. And so that helps you decide whether or not you want to approve it. It's just a good way to look at it to make sure that they will have the time at that point.
So is there a cap on how many hours can be accrued?
Yes. That's not a Katie question.
Okay.
So up to now, you have been used to having vacation and sick time, and you got it credited to your account in January and in July. To kind of make it more flexible for you and to platform that Paycom has. It's going to be one bucket that will be called PTO. We kind of like it better because it lets you manage what your time off is for. Everything comes out of that bucket, whether it's I'm going on vacation, I'm sick, death in the family. People ask me that. What is not in the bucket is jury time, jury duty if you're paid, or holidays if you're paid. I'm not sure what we do holidays, but any of your requested time off comes out of that bucket, and think of it as a bank. We put it in, you take it out. If there's nothing there, you can't take it. Even though Katie talked about a time off without pay earlier, there will be guidelines around that. If you have pay available for time off, you got to take it. You can't have that accrued and decide to take one unpaid. Okay, so there will be some guidelines, but bottom line is you got this bucket of time. So I took all of the balances. Chan has kept the balances for all of Prim, but no one was keeping balances really for TAJ or P&A, the others. So I kind of worked with those based on how they were done for Prim, how long you've been here. You know, I talked to several of you in this room even that said, how much have you taken, because I want to be as equitable as possible. And I gave you that balance to start. Now, the way the system will work is there is a cap, and you are capped at 1.5 times what you are able to accrue for a year. So the accrual at the greatest point is 3 weeks a year, which means you could get up to 4.5 weeks in your balance, and then you just stop accruing. You don't lose it if you don't use it. Okay, you just stop accruing, and then when you use down below the balance, it'll start accruing until you get back up to that cap, and you're a different cap.
Our time will just roll over.
The months have nothing to do with it. When it hits that cap, it's going to stop accruing until you use some. It doesn't matter what month of the year it is. Right, you just won't get any more till you use some. So that, a lot of people say, do we have to use it or lose it? No, I don't like that. Just cap.
Just make sure you take a vacation.
No, you won't lose it. You just don't get any more. You understand, but you understand the part of the reason for that. But part of the reason for that is, however many years ago, the government said, gosh, you guys give all these people vacation time. You now have to carry it as a liability on your books. So that just keeps it within a manageable amount that a company can know. Arvin can know at any given time, this is the max I should ever have, you know, liability.
If you reach your max, say, and you can't go on vacation, can you buy it back?
No, there's no buyout at this time. And I say it that way because, as you know, there's a lot of policies and procedures we don't have at this time. That's part of why I'm here, and it's part of what we're building. So I'm not going to say it will always be that way, but I know that Henry believes, and I've always believed, you need to take vacation. You need to take time and get away if you can. And I realize there's sometimes you feel like you can't, and there's sometimes you ask and you can't. There's going to be sometimes your people ask you, and you've got to tell them no because you've got other people off at that time. Or they don't show up and you end up working. Yeah. So, but right now, that's not part of the plan. Okay.
All right.
Sorry for the interruption. There you go, Katie.
No, that's fine. All right. So whenever you're looking at your request, to decide if you're approving or denying it, you have this button right here that says approve/deny. By selecting it, it's going to bring you to a screen that shows you all that information that you're able to see from that table. It's in a horizontal fashion. You can leave a comment to your employee, and then that is sent within an email to the employee that lets them know that it's been approved and any comment that you've left.
Wow, wait a minute. I have a question. I do love it too, but you said it's sent in an email. Does it also show on their calendar in their ESS for those that don't have email yet? I mean, our goal is to have an email set up for everybody there yet. Okay.
Yes, it does. So for people that don't have an email, they're not going to get the email notification, but they can log into Employee Self-Service and see what time has been approved or denied.
Okay.
It would be neat if they could select the option if they wanted to receive like text message notifications.
Oh, do they have that option? Did you hear her?
I did not.
She said it might be neat if they could select the option they want, like maybe to receive a text message that says it's approved, and I didn't know if that was capable in there or not.
It's not capable at this time. I have gotten that request from other clients, so I can definitely add you guys to that development within Paycom. But at this point, a text message notification is not something that's applicable.
Okay.
But I agree with you. That would be a really nice development for
I know.
people that don't have an email address or people that just don't check it. You know. So. Cool.
Okay.
Right. You can also deny it, so you would do it the same way. So from this request section, if you say approve or deny, you can put in your comment and then say deny. And then the system will deny that request. You're still going to have that audit trail. Whenever all of the pending requests have been approved or denied, that yellow background of that day goes away. So it's still going to tell you you have 2 requests on that specific day. I can see what those requests are, but nothing is waiting for my action. So that yellow highlighted box is not there anymore. I also have the ability to add a time off request on behalf of the employee. So if somebody calls in sick, right, and they have time and they need to take time, they don't have access to employee self-service, they can't log the request, you can put in the request for the employee. Add the time off request. It asks you for the employee's name. It's going to ask you for the type of accrual. Then select the date, and that date is highlighted if it's for today's dates, just to try to navigate you back. And you can add the request. Since I'm the supervisor of this employee, the system approves it because it's assuming that you're putting it in and approving it at the same time.
Hold on just a second. What's your question, Debbie?
So like our hotel people that don't accrue vacation time, would we keep this like attendance tracking?
You could. You could use it as an attendance tracker for the ones that don't really have time off.
Right.
It gives you, you know, then which days they're off and why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we never had any kind of tracking on that either. So
yeah.
that would help.
Yeah.
And you will have that leave without pay option. So that's, you know, the way to track that to where, you know, you're looking at the time card, they didn't work this day, it was leave without pay. You know, it can all be driven from this PTO section.
Okay. What's your question, Jenna? You were thinking of something else?
I didn't know that some employees couldn't accrue PTO. I thought it was based on hours worked.
No, it's based on whether your salaries, and the PTO goes to Prim, TAJ, P&A, and the GM level. So even your head housekeeper, maintenance, any of those people that are salaried do not accrue time off. You just don't schedule those days for them. When you schedule days and they ask off, you don't schedule those days. Again, that's the way it is now. We don't know what it'll always be, but that's where we are today.
Yeah, she's off all week this week.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yes. Exactly. One reason we're trying to get policies and procedures pulled together. All right, Katie, I think you answered the question.
Perfect. All right, your other option for time off request is to do it through what we call a batch within Paycom. So if you're batching something, it means you're doing multiple things at the same time. If you go to batch approved time off request, it's going to bring you to a screen that shows you all of your current outstanding time off requests across people and across the days that they've made those requests. I like this screen because it allows you to sort. So any time that you see this header, it lets you sort by that particular column, so you can put it in chronological order. It also gives you the time that the employee made the request. So it's easy to see who asked for the request first. So if you have 6 requests on the same day, and you can only approve like the first 2 that asked for it, you can see who asked for it first to try to be fair within your approving and denying process. It also gives you all of that same information that you saw from the calendar, so it tells you what type of accrual they've asked for, how many hours they've requested, all the way through the net available. You can approve or deny individually from this screen. However, you can select several. It tells you how many records were selected. You can still search for people if you know that you have an outstanding request, and the system still keeps what you've selected on the previous screen. And you can either batch approve or batch deny. So if I'm going to approve all of these requests, brings me to a screen of everything that I've selected. I can leave individual comments if I want to, and I can say approve. And that'll approve all of the time off requests from that particular screen. Your other way to get to this screen is through the time card itself. Okay, so Chandler being, he has a pending time off request on September 6th. I'm going to go look for his time card through the time card search. If I can type his name correctly. We're going to select his name. It brings me to his current time card. If a time off request has been approved, the system shows you that through that pay code. So this vacation time has already been approved within the system, and it's been sent to the time card. And I have a comment here that it was an automated time off punch with the comment that the employee gave whenever they made the request initially. If there is a pending time off request, the system shows you that through this pay code with an italicized message to you saying that this vacation request, the employee has asked for it, you haven't done anything on it yet. And so this is what will keep you from approving the time card if you see this message within the employee's time. If you click on that link, it takes you to your batch approved time screen to where you can approve any other outstanding time off requests that you might run into within that pay period. Well, are there questions about how to approve time off or how to approve time cards?
All clear. Sounds good. Anybody here? No. I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, just because there aren't questions today doesn't mean that there won't be questions tomorrow or whenever you actually log into the system. Know that you do have a help menu, so if you select the word help, it brings you to a screen that gives you access to our videos and user manuals. You have access to expand this time and attendance or this time off request section. And you have the ability to walk through these different manuals. We're going to go to the time off request.
And they keep these updated real time. If they make a change to it, it's in there so you'll know the change.
Right, exactly. So there's one for the time off request supervisors. It walks you through that process as well. So how you get to the time off calendar, how you get to the batch approved time off calendar, and et cetera. So it shows you screenshots as well on how to walk through that part of the system. You also have Paycom University courses within your employee self-service. And that's assigned to you based on what you have access to within the system. So you're going to see some of these user options. It won't be all of them, but if you just have access to time and attendance, you should be able to see a time and attendance section. That's this one. So time management overview for users and time off request overview for users. You have the ability to request that course within your own employee self-service. You can go to the actual learning section and then walk through those options in that video and the quiz and print out that certificate once you get through it. So it's just a good way to just refresh yourself. All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoy your new system.
Thank you, Katie. Katie, I have a couple of questions that Jennifer and I ran into today. If you want to, can you give me a call after this on my phone, because I know you're recording this?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go to my office here. Give me about 5 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, everyone that joined. Bye-bye.
Bye.